Bhojraj, you can stop sharing the screen and then Madhavi can start.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Republic
Madhavi.
is a government system where power rests with the nation's citizen. A very happy Republic Day to all. A very good morning to all the dear students. I welcome you all in online lecture series MA English Semester 3, jointly organized by Vasantrao Naik Government Institute of Arts and Social Sciences, Nagpur, Rajkumar Kevalramani Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, and J.M. Patel College, Bandara. Today, we have among us Mr. Bhojraj Shrirame, Assistant Professor in Department of English, J.M. Patel College, Bandara, as a resource person. Sir is NSS Program Officer of his college and NSS District Coordinator, and he has special interest in social activities. Many national and international publications are to his credit. On behalf of the host institution, sir, I welcome you and I request you to conduct the session. Sir will be present his presentation on She Stoops to Conquer by Oliver Goldsmith. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Madhavi Madam, Dr. Madhavi Madam. First of all, I am very thank you to all the colleges who organize this online lecture series. Online lecture series of MA Part 2, third semester for the students of Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur. This is a collaborative work of Vasantrao Naik Institute of Arts and Social Science, Nagpur, Rajkumar Kevalramani Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, and J.M. Patel Arts, Commerce and Science College, Nagpur. I give a special thanks to the convener of this online lecture series, Dr. Sujata Vyas ma'am, Dr. Urmila Dabir ma'am, and Dr. Vikas Domne sir, the principal of J.M. Patel College. Today's my topic is She Stoops to Conquer. So the PPT related to my topic I share with you. Just a minute. Okay. So once again, very good morning to all students, Dr. Karthik Panikar sir, Dr. Madhavi madam, and all dear students, wishing you a happy Republic Day. Today I start my lecture series on She Stoops to Conquer. So, She Stoops to Conquer. This drama include in the MA Part 2 English third semester of third paper English comedy in Unit 4. The background topics related to this drama are the rise of sentimental comedy, dramas of RB Sheridan, works of Cole Sieber, Richard Steele, Hugh Kelly, and Richard Cumberland. So, dear student, we see one by one all these background topics. First important topic is rise of a sentimental comedy. So, first question arises in front of us that what is meant by the rise of a sentimental comedy? We know the comedy, but what is meant by the sentimental comedy? This term arises in the 18th century. And this sentimental comedy, this is a dramatic genre denoting the plays in which the middle class protagonist successfully overcome a series of moral trials. And these type of such comedies aim to producing the tears rather than the laughters. These sentimental comedies reflected contemporary philosophical conceptions of human as inherently good but capable of being led astray through the bad examples. By an appeal to his noble sentiments, a man could be reformed and set back on the path of the noble sentiments. A man could reform. Although the plays contain the characters whose naturally seems overly virtuous and whose trials were too easily resolved. So they were nonetheless accepted by the audience as truthful representation of the human predicament. This sentimental comedy has its roots early in the 18th century. I told you before, the 18th century is the dramatic genre arises in the 18th century. So this sentimental comedy had a vein of morality similarity to that of the sentimental comedy, but had loftier characters and subject matters than the sentimental comedy. So the famous writers in the sentimental comedies are Colley Cibber and George Farquhar. If we are talking about the best sentimental comedies, then we must have to mention the name of Sir Richard Steele. Sir Richard Steele's famous work is The Conscious Lovers, which was published in 1722. This work deals with the trials and tribulations of its penniless heroine, the Indiana. The discovery that she has heirs afford the necessity or the necessary happiness resolutions. Still, in describing the effect he wished the play to have said he would to arouse, the pleasure to exquisite for laughter. These sentimental comedies continued to coexist with such conventional comedies as Oliver Goldsmith's She Stoops to Conquer. This She Stoops to Conquer, this comedy play published in 1773, and Richard Brinsley's Sheridan's The Rival, which was published in 1775. So until the sentimental genre won in the early of the 19th century. So in this way, this rise of sentimental comedy, this term belongs in the 18th century. The another topic of discussion in the background topic is dramas of RB Sheridan. Look at the personality. This RB Sheridan, Richard Brinsley Sheridan, he was Irish playwright. He was also a well-known poet, and he known for his satire and the comedies of manners. He owned the London Theatre Royal and served as a Whig MP in the British House of Commons. His plays are considered central to the Western dramatic canon and are still performed regularly throughout the world. In 1775, Sheridan's first play, The Rival, was produced at London Covent Garden Theatre. But it was the failure of that night. Sheridan cast capable actors in the lead of its second performance, and it was the huge success, immediately establishing the young playwrights' reputations and the favor of the fashionable London. It went to become a standard of English literature. Shortly after the success of The Rival, Sheridan and his father-in-law, Thomas Linley, an elder, he was a successful composer. They produced the Juno, this play, and this piece warmly received played for the 75 performances. The most famous play, The School for Scandals, This premiered at the Drury Lane on 8 May 1777. It is considered one of the greatest comedies of manners in English. It was followed by the Critics, which was published in 1779, and an updating of the satirical restoration play, The Rehearsal. In 1778, Sheridan wrote The Camp, which comment on the ongoing threat of a French invasion of Britain. Sheridan plays are still performed widely and are seen in a link in the history of satirical comedies of manner. Plays between the 17th century. So these plays are very famous. Next topic of discussion is Colley Cibber. Colley Cibber, he was born in 6th of November 1671 and he was died in 11th December 1757. He was an English actor, manager, playwright, and the poet. His most important work, or his colorful memoir, is Apology for the Life of Colley Cibber, which was published in 1740. Describe his life in the personal, incidental, and even rambling style. He wrote 25 plays for his own company, and half of which were adapted from the various sources. When we are talking about the famous work of Colley Cibber, then the famous works are Love's Last Ship, which was published in 1696, Richard III, which was published in 1699, and The Careless Husband, which was published in the 1704. Another famous personality which we discuss in the background topic is Richard Still, a very famous personality. Was born in the 12th March 1672 and died in the 1st of September 1729. So he was a well-known Irish writer. He was a politician also, and he is very famous to know about the periodicals, and his most important work with his friend Joseph Addison's, that The Spectator. He also became a Whig member of the Parliament in 1713. So Richard Still's first work is The Christian Hero, which was published in 1701. And in this work, in The Christian Hero, he points out the difference between the perceived and actual masculinity. This work, he was written when he was serving in army, and he expressed his ideas of pamphlets of the moral instructions. Still wrote a comedy in 1701, and the title of that comedy is The Funeral. This play met with wide success and was performed at Drury Lane, bringing him to the attention of the king and Whig party. Next, Still wrote The Laying Lover, one of the first sentimental comedy. But it was a failure on the stage. In 1705, Still wrote Tender Husband with contribution from Addison. He wrote a preface to Addison's 1716 comedy play, The Drummer. When we are talking about the personal work of Richard Still, then the Tatler, the first journal of Richard Still, came out in 12th April 1709 and appeared 3 times in a week, which is published on Tuesday, on Thursday, and on Saturday. So these days are very important because in a net set examination, dear student, the question arises on these days also. Okay, when this journal was published. Once again, I repeat, on Tuesday, on Thursday, and on Saturday. So still wrote these periodicals under the pseudonym of Isaac Briskstaff and gave Big Staff an entire fully developed personality. Still described his motive in writing the Tatler. The main motto of this Tatler is to expose the false arts of life and to pull off the disguise, cunning, vanity, and affection, and recommend a general simplicity in our dress, our discourse, and our behavior. Still founded the magazine, and although he and Addison collaborated, still wrote the majority of essays. Still wrote roughly 188 out of the 271 essays. Addison wrote 42 essays, and in collaboration, in pair, they present 36 essays in collaborative work. So while Addison contributing the Tatler, it is widely regarded as Still's work. The Tatler was closed down to avoid the complications of running a weak publications that had come under the Tory attack. After that, Addison and Still then founded the Spectator in 1711, and also they published next periodical, The Guardian, in 1713. He went to live after that. At the ending time of his life, he went to live on his wife estates in the Langenor in Wales, and in 1726 he suffered a paralytic stroke, his health broken, and still died at Wales on 1st of September 1729. Another topic of discussion is Hugh Kelly. Hugh Kelly, he was born in 1739 and he was died in 1777. He was a very famous British dramatist. Also, he is a critic and journalist. In his time, he seriously a rival of playwrights Oliver Goldsmith in London theatre after his plays False Delicacy scored a triumph in opposition to the Goldsmith's Good-Natured Man. So Kelly immigrated to London in 1760s and began contributing essays to the several magazines there. He edited the Court magazine from 1761 to 1765 and published short epistolary novels called Memoir of Magdalen. His Thepist second volume confirmed his reputation as controversial critic. The resounding success of Kelly's first play, False Delicacy, staged with a patronage of David Garrick, cost his Goldsmith's friendship and earned the enduring resentment of Samuel Johnson, who had written the prologue for Goldsmith's play. Another comedy by Kelly, The School for Wives, which was published in 1773. And Uh, and afterpiece, the Romance of an Hour, which was published in 1774, proved successful. But a final comedy, The Man of Reason, was a failure, and Kelly, having been called the bar in 1774, and he retired from the theater to practice law. Kelly's formula for success as a playwright was to blend comic and satiric scenes with earnest sentimental materials. Next topic of discussion is Richard Cumberland. Richard Cumberland, he was born in 19th February 1732, and he was died on 7th May 1811. He was very famous, eminent English dramatist whose plays were in tune with the sentimental spirit that became an important literary force during the latter half of the 18th century. He was master of stagecraft, and he was a good observer of man and manners. And this observation we see in his work. But today, perhaps is chiefly famous as a model for the characters Sir Feltford Plager in Richard Brinsley Sheridan's play, The Critic, or The Tragedy Rehearsed. So after leaving Trinity College, Cambridge, in 1761, he became private secretary to the Earl of Halifax in Duke of Newcastle ministry, and later held other government positions. His first success as a dramatist came with The Brothers, which was published in 1769, and a sentimental comedy whose plot is reminiscent of Henry Fielding's novel Tom Jones, and he continued to write prolifically. After that, his first produced great work is The West Indian, which was published in 1771. Another his important work is The Fashionable Lover, the sentimental comedy, in 1772. So this Cumberland, however, hankers after the grand style he regarded an early tragedy, Tiberius in Caprius, as his masterpiece, could pursued no management, no produced it. His series works includes The Wheel of Fortune, and himself is notable for Cumberland's reminiscence of Greek and of the theatrical manager Samuel Foote. Now, we complete the background topics related to our 5-act play. Now, we are going to discuss about the play She Stoops to Conquer. Dear student, She Stoops to Conquer is a comedy play, comedy act. It includes 5 acts. This was written by Oliver Goldsmith. Oliver Goldsmith, he was born on 1730 and he was died on 1774. So, Oliver Goldsmith, he was a famous essayist, famous novelist, poet, and playwright. So he graduated from the Trinity College, Dublin. He is studying one tragedy about Oliver Goldsmith is that He studied medicine in Edinburgh, but he never received his medical degree. He traveled to Europe in 1756 and eventually settled in London. He worked as a writer and with friends with the artistic and literary luminaries of the time include Samuel Johnson, James Boswell, Sir Jonah Reynolds, and Edmund Burke. So the Goldsmith is the author of essays collection of the Citizen of World, the novel Vicar of Wakefield. This was the very famous play. The plays A Good-Natured Man and She Stoops to Conquer. She Stoops to Conquer. This drama published in 1773. He wrote also the poetry collection Traveler or Prospect of Society. Another his famous works are An Elegy on the Death of a Mad Dog and The Deserted Village. This was a poetry, very famous poetry, published in 1770. So here we go to discuss about the characters related to the play She Stoops to Conquer. Yes, student, She Stoops to Conquer is a sentimental comedy. At first, we say that what is meant by the sentimental comedy. Sentimental comedy, I once again repeat, sentimental comedy is aimed to produce the tears than the laughter. So this sentimental comedy are heart touching. Okay, they are directly connected to the spectators or the audience. Okay, because the hero in these plays belongs to the middle class families. Okay, so we see the character list in this play. Before that, before we are discussing about the character list, we discuss about the theme of that play. Okay, so when we are discuss about the themes of the play, the first most important theme of the play is class. Okay, so in this play, the class is more. This class is not explicitly traced in this drama, but the decision of the characters make and their perspectives on another are largely based on what the class are as a part of it. And that's why this theme appears in this drama. Because when we are discussing the characters, the important character in this play, Tony openly loves the low class people, like the drunks in the Three Pigeons, and the Marlowe must hide his love of the low class woman from his father and society. His dynamic relationship with Kate and the way he treats her is defined by who he think that she is at time. She's work as a barmaid and she looks like a high class woman, high class girl. So Hastings and Marlowe's reaction to the Hardcastle is also a great example of the importance of class. They find him impudent and absurd because they believe him to be of low class, but his behavior would be perfectly reasonable and expected from members of the upper class as it truly is. Another important theme which we see in this drama is money. Maximum people says that apna sapna money money. So in this drama also, most of the characters, they feels that apna sapna money money. So one important factors that keeps the play pragmatic even when it veers close to contrivance and sentiments is the unavoidable importance of money. Unavoidable importance of money. While some of the characters like Marlowe and Harkasses are mostly unconcerned with questions of money, there are several characters whose lives are largely defined by the lack of access to it. Constance cannot run away with Hastings because she worries about the life without her inheritance, the jewelry. It means money. So when Marlowe thinks Kate is poor, a relationship of the Hardcastles, he cannot get himself to propose because of her lack of dowry. And Tony seems to live a life unconcerned with wealth. Although the implicit truth is that his dalliance are facilitated by having access to wealth. Another theme in this drama is behavior or the appearance of the character. So one of the element Goldsmith mostly skewer in his play satirical moment is aristocratic emphasis on behavior as a gaze of character. Even though we today believes that one's behavior in terms of low versus high class behavior does not necessarily indicate who someone is. Many characters in the play are oftenly blinded to a character's behavior because of the assumptions. For instance, Marlowe and Hastings treat Hardcastle cruelly because they think him the landlord of an inn and are confused by the behavior which seems forward. The same behavior would have seemed appreciably high class if they hadn't been footed by Tony. Throughout the play, the characters, especially Marlowe, assumes they understand someone's behavior when what truly guides them is their assumptions of other characters' class. Another theme which we see in this drama is moderation. So throughout the play runs a conflict between the refined attitude of the town and a simple behavior of a country. The importance of this theme is underscored by the fact that it is the crush of opening disagreement between the Hardcastle and his wife, where country's characters like the Hardcastle sees two manners of pretentious. Two town characters like the Marlowe see country manners as bumpskins. And the best course of action is produced through Kate, who is praised by Marlowe as having a refined simplicity. Have lived in town, she is able to appreciate the values of both sides of the life and can find happiness in appreciating the contradictions that exist between them. Another theme in this play is contradiction. Most of the characters in the play wants others to be simple to understand. This in many ways minors the expectations of the audience that Goldsmith wishes to mock, where his characters are initially presented as a comic type. He spent time throughout the play complicating them all by showing their contradictions. Most clear are the contradictions within Marlowe, who is both refined and base. The final happy ending comes when the two old men, the father, Hardcastle and Sir Charles, decide to accept the contradictions in their children. In a sense, this theme helps to understand Goldsmith's purpose in the play, reminding us that all peoples are worthy of being mocked because of their silly, base-natured, and one is above reproach. Another most important theme is comedy. Okay, because we know that this play is a sentimental comedy. So through it is only explicit referred to the prologue. An understanding of Goldsmith's play in context shows his desire to reintroduce his audience to the laughing comedy that derives from a long history of comedy that mocks human vice. This type of comedy stands in contrast to the popular sentimental comedy, then praise virtues and reinforce mentality. And another most important theme is deceit or the trickery. Because this in display, due to this deceit, okay, which was done by Tony. So the whole play revolves around this deceit. Okay, so the comedy comes from the trickery played by the various characters. Okay, and the most important deceit came from the Tony. So including his lie about the Hardcastle's home and his scheme of driving his mother and Constance around in the circle. However, the deceit also touched to the center of the play and the major themes of this play. Now we discuss the more important characters in this novel. The first most important character is Mr. Hardcastle. Mr. Hardcastle is a patriarch of Hardcastle family and the owner of estate, where the play is set. And he despises the ways of the town and is dedicated to the simplicity of country life. And he was old-fashioned and traditional. Okay. Second most important character is Mrs. Hardcastle. Okay. So she was a matriarch of Hardcastle family and most notable for pronounced vanity. She courted her son, Tony, and wanted him to marry her niece, Constance Neville. So why she want that his son marry with her niece, Constance, we see in the play, okay, when we are discussing about the act, okay, in that act, in the summary of act, we further discuss about this, that why why she wished that, or why she want him to marry with her niece, Constance Neville's. Third most important character in this play is Kate Hardcastle. Kate Hardcastle is also known as Mrs. Hardcastle, or sorry, Miss Hardcastle, and she is the heroine of the play. She is able. Sorry. Extremely very sorry. Okay. So Kate Hardcastle, she is a heroine of the play, and she is able to balance the refined simplicity of country life with the loves of life associated with the town. She also pretend to be a barmaid in order to judge uh, uh, her suitor, Marlowe, because she wanted to know the true character of Marlowe. Okay. Tony Lumpkin, he was the son of Mrs. Hardcastle. Mrs. Hardcastle had his earlier marriage, and this son, Tony Lumpkin, he was the son from that earlier marriage. Okay. Now she live with, now Mrs. Hardcastle live with Mr. Hardcastle. Okay. So this Tony is the son of Mrs. Hardcastle from her earlier marriage, and knows for his free-willing ways of drinking and tomfoolery. He loves to play practical jokes. Okay, these practical jokes are very dangerous because we see in this drama. Okay, so he loves to play the practical jokes and proves to be good-natured and kind despite his superficial disdain for everyone. His mother wanted to marry Constance because he is a set against the idea. Another one is Constance Neville. Constance Neville, she was a niece, okay, and called Miss Neville. So she is a niece of Mrs. Hardcastle and an orphan whose only inheritance of a set of jewels in care of her aunt, Mrs. Hardcastle. And that's the main reason why Mrs. Hardcastle wants Tony to marry with her niece, Constance Neville, because she had a set of jewels, and this set of jewels is in care of Mrs. Hardcastle. She thinks that if they married, then this jewelry remains with me. So her aunt wishes to marry Tony Lumpkin, but Constance wants to marry Hastings. Hastings is his boyfriend, his lover. Now, the next character is Marlowe. Marlowe is a hero of our play. A respectable fellow who came to Hardcastle's home to meet Kate Hardcastle. But due to the trick, okay, what happens that we see? So, possessed of a stage contradictory characters wherein he is mortified to speak to any modest woman, but is lively and excitably in conversations with a barmaid or other low-class woman. So he has a contradictory nature. After that, Sir Charles Marlowe. Sir Charles Marlowe, he was the father of Marlowe, and a respectable and aristocratic fellow from the town who believes his son is a very modest character. Actually, everyone feels that their son is a modest character. Okay. So another important character is Hastings. Hastings is Marlowe's friend. So he loves Constance Neville, Miss Neville, and a decent fellow who is willing to marry Constance even without her money. Earlier, I discussed that the theme of this play is money, but this character, Hastings doesn't have any interest in money, but he is honestly loved Constance Neville, Miss Neville, and he liked to marry with Constance. Another characters are the Diggory, maid, a landlord, and the Jeremy. Jeremy. All these are the servants in this play. Diggory is the Hardcastle's head servant. Maid is a Kate's servant, and landlords are the servants in the Three Pigeons, and Jeremy is Marlowe's drunken servant. So now we discuss about the play. This play contains 5 acts. So we discuss the summary of this play act-wise because it is very easy to understand the play. If we see the summary of this play act-wise, then we know that what is given in the first act, what is given in the second act, what is given in the third act. Okay, in this way. So we discuss this drama act-wise. So in the first act, so before this drama start, She Stoops to Conquer opens with a prologue in which an actor mourns the death of the classical low comedy at the altar of the sentimental Manquish comedy. And he hopes that the Dr. Goldsmith or Goldsmiths can remedy Sir problems through the play about to be presented. So in first act, what is given? There are 5 acts. In first act, what is given? So in first act is full of set up for the rest of the play. Okay, in the first act. It is Hardcastle's Mr. and Mrs. Hardcastle's home. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Hardcastle live in an old house, and that resembles an inn. And they are waiting for the arrival of Marlowe, the son of Mr. Hardcastle's old friend and a possible suitor for his daughter, Kate. So Kate, the heroine of our play, okay, she is very close to her father. Okay, so so that she dressed plain in the evening. Okay, just listen. Okay, Kate is very close to the father, and that's why what she doing? She dressed plainly in the evening. Okay, to suit for the conservative test, and fancifully in the morning for her friends. So he live here the 2 characters. Okay, a simple character with his father and high class character with their friends, with her friends. So meanwhile, Mrs. Hardcastle's niece Constance is in the old woman's care and has her small inheritance consisting of the valuable jewelries, and the responsibility of all these jewelries hand over to Mrs. Hardcastle. So Mrs. Hardcastle held this jewelry up to the marriage of Constance. Hopefully, to Mrs. Constance, a spoiled son from an earlier marriage, Tony Lumpkin. So the problem is that neither Tony nor Constance loved each other. And in fact, Constance has a beloved who will be traveling to the house that night with Marlowe. And Tony's problem is that he is a drunk and a lover of low living, which he shows when the plays shift to a pub nearby. When Marlowe and Hastings, Constance beloved, arrived at the pub. They lost their way and they asked to Tom. Tom has a nature to make a practical jokes, and that's why at that night, Tony plays a practical joke by telling the wrong information to the guest Marlowe, and two men that he says that there were no rooms at the pub, and they can find the lodgings at that old inn. So the false address or the wrong address given by Tony that that's the house, that's the old inn, and you will get the bedding in that inn. So in here, the first act ends with the confusion, with a confusion. In second act, what happened? Second act sees the plot get complicated. Everything is complicated due to the deceit of Tom. When Marlowe and Hastings arrives, they are apparently and rudely with Hardcastle, because they think that we are talking with the manager or the servants in that inn, and whom they think is a landlord and not a host, because of the Tony's trick. And Hardcastle expects Marlowe to be a polite young man, because his friend told him that my son, my child is a very polite, and that's why Mr. Hardcastle ready to marry his daughter Kate with Marlowe. So when Mr. Hardcastle see the behavior, see this type of rude behavior, then he gets shocked due to the behavior of Marlowe. And Constance finds Hastings and reveals to him that Tony must have played a trick. However, they decide to keep the truth from Marlowe, because here Constance and Hastings, they know that. Okay, so they think we doesn't tell the truth to Marlowe, because they think revealed it will upset him and ruin the trip, and they decide they will try to get her jewelry and elope together. It means the main ambition of Miss Constance is to take the jewelry. Okay, because I told you the theme of the play is money. Okay, so this Constance doesn't ready to leave her jewelry. Okay, so meanwhile Marlowe has a bizarre tendency to speak with exaggerate timidity to modest women, while speaking in lively and hearty tone to women of a low class. When he is in his first meeting with Kate, she is dressed well, and hence drives him into a deliberating stupor because of his inability to speak to modest woman. She is nevertheless attracted to him and decides to try to draw out his true characters. Tony and Hastings decided together that Tony will steal the jewelry or steal the inheritance for Hastings and Constance. But why he is ready? Why he is ready to steal the jewelry? Because he thinks that he can be rid of his mother's pressure to marry with Constance and whom he doesn't love. He doesn't like her. And here the second act completed. Third act opens with Hardcastle and Kate, each confused with the side of Marlowe, and they saw where Hardcastle is shocked at his impatience and Kate is disappointed to have seen only Modest. Kate asked her father for the chance to show him that Marlowe is more than both believe. Tony has stolen the jewels, but Constance doesn't know and continue to beg her aunt for them. Tony convinced Mrs. Hardcastle to pretend they were stolen to deceive Constance, a plea she willing accept until she realized that they have actually been stolen. Meanwhile, Kate is now dressed in her plain dress and is mistaken by Marlowe, who never looks her in the face of their earlier meeting as a barmaid and to whom she is attracted. She decides to play the part and they had a lively, fun conversations that ends with him trying to embrace her. A move Mr. Hardcastle observes all these. The kid asks for the knight to prove that he can be both respectful and lively. And here, the third act completed. In second last act or the fourth act finds the plot almost falling apart. The news has spread that Sir Charles Marlowe, it means Hardcastle's friend and father of young Marlowe, is on his way. It means he came in his house, which will reveals Hastings' identity as beloved of Constance and also force the questions of whether Kate and Marlowe are to marry. The Hastings has sent the jewels in the casket to Marlowe for safekeeping. But Marlowe, confused, and has given to Mrs. Hardcastle, and that is the main humor in this play. Okay. Once again, all these jewelries came to Mrs. Hardcastle, whom he still believed is the landlady of the inn. And when Hastings learned this, he realized his plan to elope with the wealth is over and decide to must convince Constance to elope immediately. Meanwhile, Marlowe impertinence towards Hardcastle's whom he belongs to the landlord and reaches its apex, and Hardcastle kicks him out of the house. during which altercation Marlowe begins to realize what is actually happening. He finds Kate, who now pretend to be a poor relation to the Hardcastle, which would make her a proper match for as a class, but not a good marriage for as a wealth. So Marlowe is starting to love her, but cannot pursue it because it would be unacceptable for his father because her lack of wealth. So he leaves her. Meanwhile, a letter from Hastings arrives that Mrs. Hardcastle intercept, and she read that he wait for Constance in the garden and ready to elope. Okay, see, this was the humor in that play, that she agreed and she insists that she will bring in Constance far away and make plans for that. Marlowe, Hastings, and Tony confront one another, and the anger over all the deceit leads to a serve argument, resolved temporarily when Tony promised to solve the problem of Hastings. So in this way, the Act 4 completed. Act 5 is the climax of this sentimental comedy. Act 5 finds the truth coming to light and everyone's happy. So the Sir Charles has arrived, and he and Hastings, okay, laugh together over the confusion about the young Marlowe and Kate. And Marlowe arrives to apologize, and in the discussion over Kate, claims he barely talked to Kate. Hardcastle accused him of lying. Since Hardcastle saw him embrace Kate, Kate arrives after Marlowe leave the room and convince the elder man she will reveal the full truth of it. They watch and interview between the two from a hidden vantage behind a screen. Meanwhile, Hastings wait in the garden over Tony's instructions, and Tony arrives to tell him that he draws his mother and Constance all over in the circle so that they think they are lost far from the home, when in fact they have been left nearby because he round and round of their home. Mrs. Hardcastle, distraught, arrives and is convinced she must hide from a highwayman who is approached. The highwayman proves to be Mr. Hardcastle, who scares her in her confusion for a while, but ultimately discovers what is happening. Hastings and Constance nearby decide they will elope, but rather appeals to Mr. Hardcastle for the mercy, and they took permission for their marriage. Back at the house, the interview between the Kate playing and poor relationship and Marlowe reveals his truly good characters, and after some discussion, everyone agrees to the match because it was the fully and perfect matches for each other, and Hastings and Constance ask permission for their marriage. And since Tony is actually of age, and therefore can his own violation decide to marry Constance, the permission is granted and all are being happy. But one person is not happy, and that was Mrs. Hardcastle. Okay, why Mrs. Hardcastle is not happy? Because due to the excess love of Mrs. Hardcastle, Tony Tony forget that, because from her ex-husband she received a fund for Tony, and that's why he doesn't declare that he is above 18 years old. So when he knows that he is above 18 years old and he is able to take his decisions, then he told that he is not ready to marry with Constance, and Constance marry with Hastings. Okay, so all were happy. Only one person is not happy, and she is Mrs. Hardcastle, because she, she because uh, she wanted that Tony marry with her niece, that he his jewelry remains with him, remains with her, and uh, this play is also known as the Mystics of that night. Okay, so in this way, this play ends with a happy. Okay, so thank you very much to give me an opportunity to deliver a lecture in this lecture series. I hope the students understand this drama. Now, over to you, Dr. Madhvi.
Thank you so much, sir, for your presentation on She Stoops to Conquer. Sir has covered all the important aspects of the play along with the prescribed background topic in this unit. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of the host institutions, I express my humble thankfulness to you. And thank you, Kapil, sir, for his technical support. Thank you to the students for joining with us for this lecture series. Thank you so much.
Thank you, students.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Madhavi.
very
Yeah.
much.